The holidays. A time where you can spend with family and enjoy the richness of... Oh, shit. How's it going, everyone? And happy holidays! We're finishing off the Holy Trilogy today while also talking about one of the more controversial Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man 3. So we have a first film that is a fantastic origin story and the spark that paved the way for the look and feel of the 2000s superhero movie. Next is an incredible sequel that elevates what came previously and is regarded as one of the best films in this entire genre. The next logical step is to cap things off with a third movie that is a good bookend which wraps up all the storylines in a nice little bow, while also raising the stakes in a way that's thematic and fitting. If only things went that smoothly. As expected with the success of Spider-Man 2, Sony immediately greenlit the next installment with Raimi and crew getting straight to work. The plan was to not only continue with the cliffhanger of Harry becoming a goblin, but also introduce the Sandman and Vulture as the main villains. But Sony being Sony, they wanted something a little more... venomous. They figured that Sam was just picking his favorite villains instead of listening to what the fans wanted, which is kinda bullshit. But as a kid who was super into the black suit and wanted to see more of it, I can understand why they wanted to include this in the narrative. So with having to shoehorn that in and having an arduous film shoot, the movie would release in May of 2007 and well, it made a shit ton of money, being the most profitable of the trilogy, but reviews were mixed and still are to this day. Makes me wonder where I'm gonna fit into that conversation. Kinda random, but remember the marketing for this? Either walking into Toys R Us or seeing that Burger King commercial. 2007 was a great time to be a Spider-Man fan. I remember seeing this film in theaters, and I've seen this movie countless times over the years. Going from loving it, to hating it, to being down the middle for me. Now it's time to revisit this and see how I feel today. Which is just a standard review, I guess. Alright, whatever. Let's get into the movie. Just like the last two videos, we're starting off by talking about the intro, which like before is a recap to previous events. Instead of the Alex Ross artwork, we have some clips from each film, which is fine. I like that the symbiote is taking over everything and you can see these sand particles flying around. It's probably my least favorite introduction in the trilogy, but what we have here isn't bad. Next we transition to some narration from our boy Peter Parker, played once more by Tobey Maguire. We learn that things have been going great for our hero, with the city starting to like him, and his personal life also going really steady with his schoolwork and relationship with MJ, played again by Kirsten Dunst. While at a show, we also see another familiar face with Harry Osborn, played once again by James Franco, and who we'll catch up with a bit later. After catching up backstage and a little goblin tease, our two lovebirds head over to Central Park to go stargazing, and while making out, a meteorite crashes right next to them without either of them noticing or hearing it. Inside is this black substance, and as they're leaving, it decides to hitch a ride with them.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
Next, we meet one of our new villains for this movie, which is Flint Marko, played by Thomas Hayden Church, who is avoiding the cops. He comes back to this apartment to not only see his daughter again, but also change into something very iconic. He wanted some bread too, but no dice on that. Now we catch up with Aunt May, played again by Rosemary Harris, in a scene which kinda drags a bit for my liking.
And it was a beautiful day, and he said, let's swim to the island. And at the island, we found a perfect spot by an old tree. And we lay down and looked up at the sky. And then he said,
Sorry. Soon enough for riding home, then crazy armored snowboarder comes out of nowhere and starts to kick our ass. This Willem Dafoe wannabe is Harry, unsurprisingly, who has dubbed himself as the new Goblin, according to marketing, and the two of them go at it. This is a pretty enjoyable fight scene. It can be a little hard making out what's happening at times, but the camera work really shines here. I love that Peter is just worrying about the ring, and the stuff in the alley is fun too. After almost decapitating his best friend, Peter takes Harry to the hospital after the CPR fails, and you'll see what dumb plot contrivance they'll have for him later. Instead, we're going to cut back to Flint being chased by the police, and who falls into a super collider, and the scientists there never bother checking before turning it on.
There's a change in the silicon mass.
Yeah, it's probably a bird. It'll fly away when we fire it up.
You think any of them realized it was their fault? Like, later in the movie when he turns into that giant sand monster, did any of them watch the news and maybe have an idea that they were responsible for that?
Did I do that?
Back at the emergency room, we learn that Harry has a bit of short-term memory loss and has pretty much forgotten everything that happened in the last two movies. This is so stupid, especially when we could have gotten some really great stuff with Harry's development in this movie. He could have learned the truth about his father, and that might have impacted his dynamic with Peter going forward. Maybe he would have become a hero, or stayed a villain, or just something other than making him a blank slate. This is especially more tragic since the last two movies barely did anything with him. This was just such a cop-out that is more or less here to push him out of the story for a while. Now we get Flint reforming his body, and I don't even need to talk about how great this scene is, just watch. With his new lease on life, he dedicates to using his powers to help his daughter and officially becomes the Sandman. After an exchange with Pete and MJ, we officially meet Gwen Stacy, played by Bryce Dallas Howard, who we saw a little of earlier. But a crane goes out of control, so she needs to be rescued. On the ground, her father arrives, who is Captain George Stacy, played by James Cromwell, and her boyfriend is also there, Eddie Brock, played by Topher Grace. And man, what a meeting of the two.
Who are you?
It's Brock, sir. Edward Brock Jr. I work at the Daily Bugle. And I'm dating your daughter.
You know, given the circumstances, this really isn't all that bad. Spidey gets to the scene, and with some impressive effects and flips, he saves Gwen and all is well. Besides this pest.
Now on, I am going to be taking shots at you for the Bugle. So, smile. Are you smiling? Just kidding.
Now we're back here at the Daily Bugle, where a comedy ensues, and the one paying for it is J. Jonah Jameson, once again graced by J.K. Simmons' perfect performance. Besides having to put up with Ted Raimi, he also has to deal with medication.
Time to take your pill. Not that one. Not that one.
He's just waiting for his chance to conquer the Earth. And the MK universe, weirdly enough.
Stop, please. Don't hit me with water.
After a Stan Lee cameo, B-Ball, and MJ's career going to hell, Spidey is set to receive a key to the city, and Pete's ego is on full display.
Go ahead, lay one on me.
Really?
Yeah, they'll love it.
Somebody's sleeping on the couch tonight, that's for sure. Festivities are cut short as the Sandman is causing a ruckus, first by attacking some officers and trying to rob an armored truck. This leads to another fun action sequence between him and Spider-Man, and afterwards Peter asks the important questions.
Where do all these guys come from?
It makes me wonder who else he's fought. Is Puma canon to Toby?
You guys know what to do.
Puma? When did you get into the stolen car business?
Now to attend a dinner reservation, and after seeing Bruce Campbell again, things get ugly real fast.
Let me ask you something. When you kissed her, who was kissing her?
Spider-Man or Peter?
Next, Peter is called down to the police station where he learns it was actually Marco who killed his uncle, and this is just a pointless retcon. I get the idea and how it plays into the message this movie's trying to spell out, but we don't need every villain to have some personal connection to the hero. A bad guy can just be a bad guy and we'll be fine with it. That's like if in Infinity War we found out Thanos was responsible for having Tony captured by the Ten Rings. It just wouldn't make sense. Like I said, it's just stupid and we didn't need this. So now Peter's full attention is on stopping him, and while he's sleeping, the black goo from earlier starts to attach itself, and we get introduced to one of the greatest things ever.
Where am I?
Hey, nice callback.
Parker, how on earth did you get in the middle of Manhattan, hanging upside down in a costume you've never seen before?
Oh, the black suit. Even though it isn't the best looking, I still have a soft spot for this version. Anybody that says the classic look couldn't have been done is just straight lying. Just put the honeycomb pattern on it and call it a day. Plus, cosplayers have been making that work for years. Idiots. Anyway, like I said, I enjoy this rendition, even if it's just the regular suit dipped in black. I dig the bigger lenses, and the new logos look pretty cool. I'm happy that we got to see this suit come back for Marvel Spider-Man 2. Alright, I'm done rambling. Back to the story. After a visit to Dr. Connor's class, Peter comes home to find that Marco has robbed a bank, so he decides to take the cool new suit in order to bring him down. While at the scene, that weasel Eddie arrives and he gets what's coming to him.
See you, chump.
I was tempted to add the fart and the Scooby laugh, but nah. In the subway tunnels, the two get acquainted once again, and it leads to the next big brawl, and it's a good one too. From the camera work to that iconic shot, which is just brutal. It's a short bout that I wish could have gone on a bit longer, but I'm happy with how it turned out. You think the sound of the trains would affect the suit, but whatever, plot armor. At the bottom, Spidey rips open a pipe or something and decides to kill Flint with water.
Good riddance.
You ever notice that useless swinging shot? Also, seeing Peter get his emo hair will always be funny to me. Back at the apartment, Peter decides to be a real bully to Mr. Dickovich.
Leave me alone.
Give me rent.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
Anyway, he lays off the suit and goes to tell Aunt May what happened.
It's like a poison. It can take you over. Before you know it, turn us into something ugly.
Next, we hang out with MJ for a minute as she calls up Harry to meet with him. Meanwhile, Peter is standing by the phone, and we see why Mr. Dickovich is the best character ever.
If it's a woman you're calling, then you say, "You're a good woman, I'm good man."
Back with the duel, they cook a meal and have a smooch. Mary Jane storms out, and Harry gets his memories back from a mirror.
What have you done?
I mean, it's not the craziest thing in the world. With his father's words, Harry's back on his revenge quest, and his first stop is to MJ's apartment to put in a request. She calls Peter to meet her at a bridge, and it doesn't go well.
No. Please. Please don't say that.
I can't watch this without being reminded of how it should have ended.
What do you mean? But I love you, you love me, and the ring, and your red hair, I'm Spider-Man! Ah!
At a coffee shop, Harry meets with Pete to let him know that he's the other guy, and that he really likes pie. I don't know why I rhymed there.
How's the pie?
So good.
Also, he clearly just ducked under the table as soon as the truck went by. After a little staring into nothing, he's tempted by the black suit and goes over to confront Osborn Jr. After being provoked, the two go at it, and this is probably my favorite fight in the movie. It's a tense and visceral fight, which we haven't really seen since the first movie. I like that it moves over to the Goblin Room, and there's something hilarious about seeing James Franco thrown around like a rag doll. Everything about this is great, from the back and forth between them and the moves that are on display. With one last attempt, Harry throws a pumpkin bomb at Peter, which blows up in his face. Literally. While on a stroll, Pete comes across a photo taken by Brock and makes a scene at the Bugle. Turns out it's a fake, and JJ fires Eddie on the spot and prints a retraction.
Man, what a douche. Hope he doesn't come back and turn into a oh wait.
Next we have the greatest montage in the history of mankind, with Bully Maguire on full display and the most awkward dance moves in cinema. Now the movie remembers Sandman, and Peter takes Gwen out on a date to a jazz club where MJ works at. He decides to showboat a little and make her feel jealous, and it just gets worse from there.
Gave her the old Janet Van Dyne. Okay, I know, it's a bit too far. Although, not according to the Ultimate Universe anyway.
Being distraught, Pete heads over to the church to first give us the poster for the movie, and he tries to take the suit off with no results at first. Eddie is also at the same church, and this happens.
I come before you today, humbled and humiliated, to ask you for one thing. I want you to kill Peter Parker.
So is Jesus a hitman in the Raimi-verse?
After bumping into the bell, Peter starts to get the ooze off of him. As a result, it falls towards the bottom floor, bonding itself to Eddie, transforming him into the monstrous Venom.
I am doing everything in my power not to mention Eminem. To the dismay of Walter.
After a shower and a heart-to-heart with Aunt May, we see that Venom has tracked down Sandman, where he not only poses an alliance to kill Spider-Man, but we also get a full look at the Lethal Protector in all of his glory, with his face peeled back. Just from a general design, I like what they did here. I dig the messy web pattern, and the eyes look good with the overall size and shape. A lot of people complained about his size, but I don't mind it much. Would I have preferred a larger Venom? Absolutely. But for the context of the narrative, it's fine. Also, he isn't as small and as frail as people make him out to be. One thing I can't stand, however, is the logo is so muted and it blends into the suit. I can barely tell it's there half the time, and it's just distracting, especially when he's just standing around. Also, not a big fan of his screech, and the face peel... Well, I think you can all take a guess on how I feel about that. Just getting into the final battle, Mary Jane is once again kidnapped, and after watching some news footage, Peter is prompted to dig out the old red and blues to go save her. Before arriving, he heads over to Harry's to try and get his help, and... Damn! It doesn't pan out, and all of a sudden this happens.
The night your father died, I cleaned his wound. The blade that pierced his body came from his glider, but there's no question that he died by his own hand.
Man, what a perfect time to just drop that on Harry, right?
Anyway, Spidey arrives at the construction site, and this is where the fight really starts. We have a little duel in the air, which is nice, but then we also have a fucking sand kaiju that is actually kinda rad. The first section of the battle is pretty cool. I like that Peter still makes an effort even though the odds are completely not in his favor at all. But while all hope seems lost, a pumpkin bomb comes out of nowhere, stumbling the sand monster as the new goblin joins in to help Spider-Man. The second phase starts with Harry focusing on Marco, with Peter jumping in every once in a while. We also see the two friends working together to save Mary, which is nice after all the shit that happened during the last movie and this. Soon enough, the Sandman crumbles, which only leaves one obstacle in the form of Brock. No, not that Brock. Spider-Man gets a bit tied up in all the shenanigans, with Harry swooping in not really getting the point.
I stand corrected. He got 2 of them.
With a core memory unlocked, and with the power of pipes, Peter separates the symbiote from Eddie, but when it turns into a behemoth, his response is to blow it the fuck up. Once the dust settles, Flint comes in and tells Peter what really happened with his uncle, with it boiling down to him accidentally pulling the trigger. Peter forgives him and Marco parts off into the sunrise, never to be seen again. Until No Way Home.
Sir.
So what? Y'all just gonna stand here and act like I ain't butt-ass naked?
I am.
Next we get one last moment with our trio of friends as Harry succumbs to his wounds and dies in their arms. After the funeral, we cut back to the jazz club with MJ performing, with Peter arriving offering his hand at the 2 of them embracing. The last shot is of them slow dancing with hope that they can rekindle their relationship, ending the story of Spider-Man 3 and bringing the Holy Trilogy to a close. The story overall is really enjoyable, but it isn't perfect. This has been pointed out by literally everyone, but it's stuffed with plotlines and characters fighting for screen time. I never thought of this before, but now that I'm looking at this critically, it became more apparent as I continued watching.
You know, just for fun, let's count as many as we can.
Let's see, we have Spidey's ego, MJ's career in shambles and the strain it takes on her and Peter's relationship, Harry taking his revenge for what happened as well as his amnesia, Flint Marco becoming the Sandman and him also trying to save his daughter, the retcon of what happened to Uncle Ben, Eddie and Pete's fight for the staff job at the Daily Bugle, Peter intending on marrying the woman he loves, as well as dealing with the symbiote and the repercussions of that. I'm probably forgetting some, but that is a lot to juggle for one 2-hour movie. There is definitely stuff that adds nothing, and if it were up to me, I would have kept it at the main trio of friends and the Sandman. Not including the retcon. In a weird way, however, I can't imagine Spider-Man 3 without anything cut out. I can't explain it, but I can still watch it perfectly fine as is despite its flaws. There's enough there to keep me engaged, but I can now look at it and point out what's wrong with it.
With the story out of the way, let's get into the other stuff on display here.
Like always, let's go over the cast first. Tobey Maguire is still good as always. He still portrays that nerdy quality to him, and I like the idea that he just became a cocky asshole between films. When he gets the black suit, he really becomes a menace, but instead of feeling concerning, it's more hilarious than anything. Kirsten Dunst is the best she's been in these movies. It's a little upsetting seeing her in a bad spot with her Broadway stunt going to shit and her going back to being a waitress.
Or maybe that's just karma from all the shit that happened in the last movie.
Even when she argues with Peter, I'm on her side, especially when it came to that dinner scene talking about the kiss. Her kissing Harry wasn't necessary, but I'm glad they didn't go any further and that she knew it was a mistake. I know that I've had a lot of criticisms with Mary Jane over the course of these reviews, and I just want to make clear that I don't hate the character. I just don't like what they've done with her in a lot of instances. James Franco is also at his best for the right and wrong reasons. I like that he has more screen time and things to do, but most of his plot is kind of wasted. They follow through with his revenge, which is fine, but it's immediately wasted once he forgets the last 2 movies happen. And even when he does remember, his butler comes in and tells him something he could have done at any point before his face became Swiss cheese. As far as his acting, there are some emotional beats, but other moments he clearly smoked a joint before filming the scene, and it's extremely apparent.
How's the pie?
So good. Sorry, I needed an excuse to play that clip again.
Thomas Hayden Church does a really good job here. I feel the struggle he's going through with his sick daughter, and for that reason, he's probably my favorite version of the character. Besides the fact he's responsible for Uncle Ben's death, I like this more sympathetic take on Flint. Topher Grace is trying his best here, but even his performance can't save this interpretation of the character. Besides my issues with Venom himself, Topher's acting feels like he's trying so hard to impress, which is the point I guess, but it doesn't do much for me. I can appreciate the idea of doing a mirrored Peter Parker without any of the morals, but every time I see him on screen I wish he wasn't there. I hate his jokes, I don't like his personality, and even when there's serious moments I can't take him seriously. Rosemary and JK, you can already guess what I'm gonna say.
I just don't want to repeat myself from the last two videos. Oh yeah, I forgot the Stacy's War thing in this movie.
Action is good, but not as good as the last movie. Spider-Man 2 raised the bar in a way that it would be hard to match, and I feel this movie doesn't quite hit that mark. Not to say that they're bad, they're not. I even like them more than what the first movie had. But like I said, they don't impact me on a level previously showcased. On the opposite end, I think the effects are at their peak in this film. It has aged to some degree, but given the time frame, they still beat the last two movies in this series and still hold up nicely today. The score by Christopher Drake I'm very indecisive about. When it comes to recreating pieces from the earlier movies, I'm not as generous for. It sounds very close to what I know, but there's always been something off about it that's kept me from enjoying them much. As for the new compositions, like for the Black Suit and the Sandman, I think this is where it really shines, and actually one of my favorite tracks is the last song you hear in the movie. In general, I don't hate what he's done, but it's off just enough to keep me from really loving it.
Alright, time to end this video and bring this trilogy of reviews to a close.
Spider-Man 3, in my humble opinion, is a good time that, even though it has some major problems, is something that fans of the character can watch and enjoy on its own merits. Is this one of the worst comic book movies ever? Not even close, and it isn't even the worst Spider-Man movie by a large margin. I believe it succeeds in wrapping up storylines across the trilogy and ending on a note that feels relatively satisfying. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's perfect because it isn't. Certain characters feel underdeveloped, and a number of plotlines feel tacked on and pointless or go in a direction that doesn't work for what they were building up to. Regardless, I can still have a seat and have a pleasant time watching for what it is, but if you don't feel the same, that's totally fine. I recommend another watch through at some point, because who knows, you might be surprised with how you feel by the end.
So I'm kind of doing a little bit of an unscripted bit here, but I just kind of wanted to talk about how much, the Raimi Trilogy means to me, and how much, I'm glad that it, its impact is still felt across Spider-Man media today, from, Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man PS4, and, it's amazing to me that we even got Tobey back in the first place for No Way Home, so, for all the years that I've been watching these movies, I've always come back to the Raimi Trilogy, even after, going through the Andrew Garfield era, and, we're still continuing the Tom Holland kind of phase, if you will, but, no matter how many movies come out, and, whether they're good or not, I can always come back to these three movies and, still enjoy them for what they are, and, they still inspire me to do what I'm doing now. So, to Tobey Maguire, the whole cast, Sam Raimi, all the writers, and everybody involved with this trilogy, I just want to say thank you so much for, making a huge impact on my life. You're probably never going to see this, but, that's fine. Whatever. Man, I am spidered out at the moment. So I think next time, when we review movies, I think we're going to move on to the Cape Crusader. Which version of the Cape Crusader will be decided, but until next time, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching, and of course, don't forget to take care of yourselves.
Happy holidays, everybody, and remember, friends don't let friends drive drunk.